welcome all my viewers from across the globe. My name is Ife Onabo, and welcome to Ife's Global Channel. This is a channel where we discuss mostly African matters. We analyze events and news and how these things affect us as African people both at home and here abroad. Today we'll be discussing something that is related to the current the fallout of the war in Ukraine, and we're focusing specifically on what I refer to as the gas war. The gas war is also a fallout of this war. Now, the moment this war between Ukraine and Russia started, I knew there was going to be a lot of trouble. Like you all know, Russia invaded Ukraine on the 24th of February, 2022. And in response to this invasion, the West, led by the United States and Russia, the West, led by the United States and NATO, they imposed a rash of sanctions on Russia. And this rash of sanctions, I call it the mother of sanctions. And you all know that Europe relies heavily on Russian gas to power their homes and also to power their industries. And then Europe decided it was time to wean themselves off Russian gas. So that was how the war was declared. Now, the decision by Europe to curb their reliance on Russian gas also meant that other energy sources would have to prospect for other energy sources. In other words, they would have to look for alternative sources of supply. And that is how Africa, our mother continent, became involved in this matter. Now, at the time of doing this video, European leaders are busy scrambling all over Africa in an effort to prevent the economy of Europe from grinding to a halt. I use the word scramble. We're not talking about the Berlin Conference of 1884, when Africa was carved up and shared, divided like a piece of meat and shared amongst European powers. In that conference, they said, okay, Britain, this is your share. France, this is your share. Portugal, this is your share. Holland, this is your share. Spain, this is your share. That was how Africa was carved up. And it reminded me again of those days, those of us who grew up in Africa and those of us who used to eat from one pot of soup that our mom would give to us. After eating the food, then we will have to share the meat. And then the eldest of the siblings will get the lion's share of the meat, which I considered a little bit unfair. That's a little digression, by the way. So Europe was shared up Africa was shared up in 1884 in Berlin. Now, mind you, Russia was not part of the scramble, so Russia didn't get any share. Also, the United States was not part of the scramble. But remember too that the United States was a major beneficiary of cheap African slave labor. Let's not forget that. But I don't want us to digress today. So what's this scramble that we're talking about? There's been a series of meetings between EU leaders and African governments with a view to securing alternative energy supplies for Europe. Meetings have been held with the governments of Algeria, Nigeria, Egypt, and other gas-producing nations in Africa. Now, the fact is that Russia supplies about 40% of the gas that powers European production process. So this second scramble we're talking about is not about territorial acquisition. The Europeans are looking for alternative sources of energy, and Africa has become the bride. It's like the stone that the builder refused, that has now become the head cornerstone. And now, listen, folks, the trouble is that Africa is not even in a position to supply all the energy needs of Europe. Africa is not in a position to do that. And why is this so? Because the last couple of years, or I would say decades, European energy firms have been gradually divesting from African energy sector because of the hysteria about global warming and the move away from fossil fuel. Now, mind you, Africa does not contribute to global warming. And even if we do contribute, it's a very negligible percentage. But that's a discussion for another day. Now, most of these European firms have been busy pouring billions into research and the development of what they refer to as renewable energy. I don't have any problem with that. But the trouble is that African nations have argued all along that there is abundance of gas in Africa and there is a need for further investment and exploitation of this abundant energy resource. And they argued again that instead of investing in renewable energy, why not first exploit the abundant gas reserves? In Nigeria, for example, those of us who are conversant with what's going on there is something they call gas flaring. It has become normal. Now, when you go to a city like Port Harcourt, you see gas being flared, being wasted, just for nothing. Because there is abundance of it, and so much of it is wasted. Now, the truth is that the plea of Africa for investment in gas sector has fallen on deaf ears until now. So, what goes around, like the Americans would say, comes around. I believe that gas is a clean is clean energy, and it does little or no harm to the environment when it is properly utilized. But European energy firms are not listening at all. Now, the situation right now is that African energy producers cannot meet up with European demand for gas because of limited capacity to produce. I choose my words carefully. I'm talking about limited capacity to produce, not lack of capacity. So if Africa, for example, wanted to profit from this situation, she's not in a position to do so for the reasons we have just given. That's the update, folks, and I want to thank you for watching. And if you enjoy the content that we create, if you enjoy authentic African stories, please subscribe to this channel because there is definitely more to come. Thank you. Bye.